episode of Green with Envy. Will Weir is doing what Will Weir does this weekend, and he is busy with family, attending soccer games in the U.S., which doesn't happen very often. This is Greg Manakis checking in with your boy, Adam Taylor. What's good, Adam?
When you said that Will was doing what he usually does, everybody listening was probably thinking that Will was traveling.
Well, Will's just always busy. You know, he's traveling. He's working. He works in the cannabis industry, so he's always doing weird stuff for that. Like he was out in L.A. recently. He's all over the place. His company, they do like point of sales for cannabis stores and distributors. So he's always traveling for something. But I saw his Instagram, which he doesn't. Will's not a big Instagram guy, but I think he's been doing a little bit more because he's trying to get the pod account going. And I saw him post something from an Austin FC soccer game last night, which is super fun, but it's like 105 degrees. So he's insane for making that.
Yeah, so when I come to Texas, you guys are going to have to show me wherever keeps me cool.
Well, you know, whenever I get married, that's what I'm doing right after this. I'm going venue shopping with my fiance, Danielle. You will be invited. Of course, you're on the list, Adam. So don't worry about that. If you make the trip to Texas.
Can I bring +2?
Yeah, we can talk about the plus situations, but yeah, absolutely. You know, coming over from the UK, we'll make any accommodations that you need.
I mean, I'm just more worried about the heat, dude.
So how does the +2 factor into the heat? Is that just a separate mutually?
That's just so I bring the wife and the kid, and I can class it as a holiday at the same time, vacation, and then
definitely
I kill two birds with one stone, bro.
Yeah, no, I feel you definitely need that. But the heat's crazy, dude. The heat's absolutely insane. But Will was out there at the Austin FC game last night. So I think he's hosting his girlfriend Lorena's family. That's why Will couldn't be here today. But it's Greg, it's Adam. You know, when Greg and Adam do a pod, it always gets weird. And I'm excited for how weird it's going to get.
I'm just a weird person in general. I've accepted this. And I think that everybody else should jive with it. As you can see, I'm looking for my glasses. Everyone should jive with it just because when do you get two weird people on a podcast talking ball? It doesn't happen.
I mean, most podcasts have two weird people, but they're not always talking about basketball.
Yeah, I mean, you need to be a certain type of person to put yourself out to an audience and just talk about something. And then just be like, people will listen, right? Like, people will care. And then you go away and you're like, nobody's going to care. And then sometimes people care, sometimes people don't. You kind of just ride it with it. It's a weird industry, man. It's a weird.
Before we get into like actual Celtics topics, is there any like Galaxy brain type topics that are on your brain right now?
No, I mean the Damian Lillard stuff's kind of. I like that. I like that the NBA stepped in. I feel like they've seen a bunch of players take supermax deals and then a year or two later force themselves out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And seeing the NBA kind of intervene this time. And I know Miami Heat fans will be feeling a certain type of way because it never happened with Harden or it never happened with whoever. I get that, but somebody needed to come in and kind of play hardball somewhere. So seeing the NBA step in and be like, no, you signed a contract. You will go where you are sent and you will play. I agree with that to a certain extent, but I still think that Portland need to show a certain level of class here to a guy that gave everything to their organization and still look to put him in a good position.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic right now, right? With the Austin Rivers comments that came out. I heard T-Mac was on the Ryan Russillo podcast recently, which, by the way, T-Mac, the fact that he's like making the rounds right now and he's becoming more part of the popular culture and the general basketball discourse, I think is going to do wonders for his legacy moving forward. Because I was a huge T-Mac guy. I had T-Mac sneakers. I had all the T-Mac gear. So when I see everybody now like watching Tracy McGrady highlights and realizing how much of a problem he was, I think it's great just for his legacy. But yeah, with Damian Lillard, you know, players are going to push the envelope and they're going to push the limits until somebody pushes back against them, right? Like, why wouldn't they do that? It makes sense for them in the player empowerment era to continue to push the envelope until someone says, you know what, that's probably a little bit too far. This isn't good for the spirit of the game. And it seems like when your agent, right, starts making those public declamations that my guy's not going to be happy, he's not going to play hard for you if you trade for him, that's just not great for the game, right? So the fact that the NBA is stepping in right now, Maybe they should have done it previously with some other guys, but now they're doing it. I think that's important because somebody has to step up and put their foot down against players asking for too much.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I do think that Lillard deserves to go to a winning situation, but I also think that if you've created an entire CBA around avoiding super teams, stepping in to kind of limit how easy it is for a player to force that into existence makes a lot of sense too, right? It's clear that the NBA wants parity. They believe that having more good teams across both conferences, having deeper conferences, is going to be more entertaining because there's very rarely quote unquote league pass games. Do you know what I mean? So if you don't step in and stop players from trying to move here, there, or everywhere at their own whim, it's very easy for these super teams to keep being constructed. So I understand why they've done it. I feel bad for Dame, but that was the only Galaxy brain thing I've got on my mind today.
Well, you went basketball. I was more talking about do you want to talk about UFOs? Do you want to talk about atomic bombs
So let's do UFOs, dude, real quick. So I've seen a bunch of this Congress stuff with the UFOs right now. I'm very the way I've always looked at anything like this is science. Everyone's like, look at the science, this, the science that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not out here looking for a hidden planet at the end of the solar system. I'm not trying to say we live on
Planet X. You want to talk about Planet X?
I'm not saying we live on the back of a giant turtle or tortoise or whatever we're meant to be living on the back of. One thing I will say is that science is very young. So when everybody's pointing to science as the logical explanation for everything, I'm like, well, science consistently has to retract things it put out and then replace it. And when we're talking about life, we know life as we know it. I like to use that sentence. And I saw a guy come on TikTok earlier today, and he was like, everything that's being said in Congress right now is fake. You're telling me an alien race traveled 5.93 billion miles, which is a light year, to crash land at the last mile. He's like, and I'm like, okay, so you make sense. But how many times did planes travel thousands of miles to crash at on landing?
I like that.
It happens, and it's not like it was just a smooth ride, right? Like they're saying these aliens crashed because some motherfucker came with a gun and shot them out of the sky. Like they probably didn't expect that. They were looking for a diplodocus and got hit with a bazooka. You just don't know. So I found it really interesting. I'm not saying there are aliens. I just think it's very, very ignorant to expect us to be the only people in the entire unexplored universe.
For sure. The fact that you brought up the planet at the end of the solar system. So do you know the Planet X theory? Have you heard about this?
The one with the Anunnaki and however you pronounce it.
I don't know what you're gonna say, but what for me, there's this theory out there that I know, and I wouldn't call myself a conspiracy theorist, but I do enjoy a good conspiracy. So there's so there is this theory. I think it's called the Planet X theory. I might have the wrong letter, but basically that every 200,000 years or whatever it is, a planet comes by Earth and aliens will come to Earth and give us technology because there's a certain period of time where there's these big jumps in technological advancements. So there's this theory out there that there's this planet that just goes super far out into the solar system and swings back around. And anytime it passes Earth, that's when we get new technology, which is a fun theory to think about. I'm not saying I espouse this theory. You brought it up. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean,
for anybody that hadn't heard about what I'm calling the Planet X theory. I don't know if that's what it's called.
Yeah, so to add on to that, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but rabbit holes are rabbit holes when you're working all day. Yeah. And, I take a lunch break and I hit YouTube or I hit TikTok and you fall down these rabbit holes for a good 25 minutes. So mainly because they're hella interesting. I'd rather watch that than somebody just lip sync into a track. I just don't understand. But the expansion on that theory is something called the Anunnaki, which were the aliens that are meant to come down to Earth off this big planet that apparently has the biggest orbit of all orbits in the history of orbits in the entire universe of orbits, where orbits don't orbit. And they come down, they give us technology, but apparently they interwove our DNA with theirs, and that's why we are how we are. I'm like, yo, dude, that's bullshit. I'm sorry, I'm calling shenanigans on this part. You've gone too far.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing about a good conspiracy, right? There's always a moment where you're like kind of believing it for a second until they drop that, right? Until they've done DNA experiments and connected humans with aliens, and that's what we are. But anyways, Adam, there's a guy out there in the broadcasting industry that can have a conversation like this. He can talk about aliens, I'm sure. He can talk about the Celtics. He can talk about whatever it is when it comes up live on air on a broadcast. And that is the Celtics Hall of Famer, Mike Gorman, who announced his last call or his last dance. I think last call is probably more applicable to a broadcaster, right? So Mike Gorman's last call is going to be this season with the Boston Celtics. What were your initial thoughts when you heard that Mike Gorman was officially calling this his last season?
Well, first of all, Mike Gorman was also the guy that introduced this podcast when it was still on the Celtics blog feed
That's
for
true.
over a year, for nearly 2 years. So that intro will remain part of our legacy. But talking of legacies, it won't be Celtics basketball. It won't feel the same, right? Like the adjustment was difficult enough going from Tommy to Scal. And that to this day just doesn't feel right. Like we've all adjusted. We're used to Scal being on the call. We've kind of embraced him to to a certain level, at a certain point. And it's most likely going to be his name's gone out of my head real quick. Who's going to replace him? I really like the guy that's going to replace him, but his name's gone out of my head. Does the play-by-play on the radio.
Oh, Grandy.
Yeah, it's going to be Sean Grandy. That's going to be the most likely replacement. I don't think there's anybody better for that role. I think Grandy's going to do great. But as long as I've been watching Celtics basketball, as long as I've been an NBA fan, Mike Gorman's been calling the games. And that's a long time. So to go from that to not having that, like, that's not going to feel good, man. That's going to, like, they've got to win a championship for me to even be okay with this happening.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt the same way when, just thinking about Tommy and his last couple of years with the Celtics. I really wanted to get one last championship and one last banner for Tommy, because he absolute legend as a player, coach, and broadcaster for the Celtics. And Mike Gorman, for me, man, like it's another level of connection to what I felt to Tommy Heinsohn, because Mike Gorman literally graduated from the high school that I went to, Boston Latin School, and he also grew up in the same neighborhood that I grew up in. He was from St. Brendan's Parish. I'm from St. Anne's Parish. Everything in Dorchester is like broken up by parishes, right, with Catholic churches. So he was part of like the adjacent parish to my parish. So like on broadcast, he'll reference Boston Latin School. He'll reference Toohey Park, where I used to go play basketball, wiffle ball tournaments, Little League baseball. And he just always felt like part of the neighborhood. He didn't feel like he was doing too much on the broadcast, right? He was just a common guy, a guy from Boston that just got this amazing gig to call Celtics games. And I think that's the thing about Mike Gorman that has always stood out to me, is his ability to just feel so relatable, where, the special broadcasters out there, the special personalities, have a way of bringing you in so you feel like you're watching the game with them rather than listen to them call a game, right? And that's what I felt. That's what I loved about Mike and Tommy, is that they always made you feel like you were sitting right next to them, which doesn't quite happen with Mike and Scal, right? There's that disconnect that you feel as an audience member where you don't feel welcome as much into the broadcast. I think that's something Scal's improved on, but he's not there yet, right? I think maybe it's partially just his personality, where he's a little aloof and a little standoffish. But right now, like Gorman, the fact that he has announced this is his last ride, I know me personally, I am going to be tuning in to every Celtics broadcast. If there's an opportunity, national broadcast, force the Celtics broadcast, I'm going to be listening to the Celtics broadcast for sure.
Do you know what I'd like them to do? And it would be harsh on Scal, and I don't think it would be very fair, but I'd like them to do one former Celtic per home game for the rest of the season to sit alongside Mike, because Mike's called their games. Idea. And then they could have, like, a moment where the guy that called games for them, they're calling games with him.
Oh, dude, that is an amazing idea.
I really think that would be a really good way to kind of go out, right? Just like every game is a different former Celtic, and you can start with the big ones, but there's fan favorites, there's former champions, and just really show Mike like how many generations of this team he's touched and he's been around. I think that would be such a classy way to say it's kind of like a goodbye tour, but only in the Garden. Like when you're on the road, whatever.
Dude, this is genius.
I think it'd be good. I'm going to put this clip out afterwards to see how other people.
I was already saying, like, breakout clip number 1, Adam Taylor. you need to get paid for coming up with this idea. That it seems so obvious but so brilliant. I think that's the great thing about, like, the brilliant points that people make. Sometimes it's just like the most obvious thing, and the most obvious thing here is to bring in former Celtics, former coaches, to show Mike that we appreciate him. I mean, you could even probably going fans is probably one step too far. Like season ticket holders, season ticket holders have been
you
there
need
for a
some
long time.
form of you need some form of control over what's going to come out of people's mouths live on TV. You can't just have the random.
You just have Adam Taylor and Greg Manakis.
Yeah, just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you need some, like, at least with like a former player, you got some form of level of control because they're probably going to earn a paycheck from this. It's a gig, but being able to go from, like, maybe you can bring Larry Bird in for one. Maybe you can bring in KG for one. Try and maybe avoid Paul Pierce after the Showtime incident. Maybe not, because we need
Paul, we are live. We are live right now. This game is happening and people are listening right now.
Paul's like, you see that entire section of girls there? I bought all of them for the day. Not just one, Mike. I got the whole lot, Mike. Did you know there was a website you could buy a bunch of these?
That would be amazing. But yeah, I think that's a great idea, though, man. Shout out to Mike Gorman, absolute legend. The last call with Mike Gorman happening this season with the Boston Celtics. But with that, we can still talk about Mike after if you want, Adam, if you got anything else to say. But let's take a quick break, and then let's get into some other quick hits around the Celtics organization. All right, we're back. Adam, any last thoughts on Mike Gorman before we transition?
No, I mean, we've said what we need to say. No, I'm not. I'm very, very confident that we're going to have multiple conversations around this topic between now and the end of the year. So I don't want to kill it all right now. I think we've said what we needed to say.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to some news with some players on the Boston Celtics roster. First being Al Horford. There was a report that came out that Al Horford is going to be part of the Dominican roster for it's the FIBA World Cup, right?
Yes,
so I saw you tweeted something out about that, or put something out on Instagram. What are your initial thoughts when you hear that Al Horford is going to be participating in international basketball this summer?
Yeah, don't do it. I mean, I wrote a news around this as well for Celtics blog. One point I wanted to make was, by all means, go and be that veteran presence on the bench. Maybe work with the assistants and have a coaching role, but don't play. Yeah. Like, you were already missing back-to-back, like second nights of back-to-backs for good reason during the regular season. The Celtics have done everything they can to manage your health and your fitness to keep you ready for the postseason. You don't need to add countless extra miles to the clock at this age when you're coming into a championship season. I just don't think it's the right thing for Al at the age he is. I understand that he wants to represent his country. The World Cup there's a lot of good talent going to be there, and if he plays, the Dominican Republic have, I think it's 4 NBA level guys. They've got Al Horford, Towns is there. They've got Lester Quinones, is it, from a two-way guy from Golden State, and then Chris Duarte as well. So they're going to have 4 NBA guys, which is more than every team, well, most teams other than Team USA. Like, they'll put themselves in good position, but I just don't think it's the right thing for Al from a Celtics standpoint.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think the biggest, most salient point that you made was that the Celtics have done so much to manage his health, and he's signed up for this load management, if you will, this late in his career, not playing on the second night of back-to-backs. And although we did ramp up his minutes because of just like the nature of the other injuries on the roster last year, I think it's important for Al Horford to kind of just keep that in mind, that, as much as he probably wants to actually be on the court for the Dominican Republic team, the Celtics are the team that's paying him. And we want to make sure that we have a healthy and happy Al Horford moving forward. There's another thing that came out with the FIBA World Cup. pictures of skinny Luka Doncic. Did you see these pictures of Luka?
I have not seen these pictures of Luka. Let
Dude,
me look.
Google it real quick. I just want to get your like on
What
air
am I just
reaction.
googling skinny Luka?
Yeah, or just like Luka FIBA World Cup. There's some pictures. I think he posted them on Twitter, but he looks
What the hell? He
slim.
doesn't just look skinny. He looks toned.
Yeah, he looks great, and there are all these videos that were coming out of Luka, with the reaction drills and the ball handling drills that he was doing with Steph Curry, and he didn't look great. He looked kind of slow, but when you see this picture and you look at a skinny Luka Doncic, to me, the first thing that I thought was, man, he was really out of shape the last couple of years because he looks great in this picture.
So I'm just sharing it now for anyone watching on YouTube. That is not the Luka Doncic that we saw at the end of the season. That is not the Luka Doncic we have seen. This is the Giannis arc, where all of a sudden muscles start forming where muscles weren't before, and you don't know how they got there so quickly.
Is that Luka or is that a video game?
That's Luka in Slovenia. That's actually Luka.
That literally looks like a video game. How toned he is.
I know it's not fair, right? There's another one as well. Like someone zoomed in and pointed out the muscles, and what the hell, dude? Luka is,
dude, that's got to be photoshopped.
I don't know, man, because if you look, like, this is how he was before. So what it really is the weight's come off and the muscle definition stayed.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can find
shout
another one.
Shout out to Luka.
Look, another one here. Like, you can see the definition there. This is not fair. How did he lose so much weight so quickly? Like, this is the James Harden meet Giannis arc all in one. Like, Luka's going to be scary, dude.
I mean, I hope that this isn't photoshopped and he is as in as good shape as it seems like he is in these pictures. Because we, as fans of basketball that have just kind of pushed Luka up onto this pedestal probably a little bit too soon in his career, just because he EuroLeague MVP as young as he was and all that. And he looks so great, going head to head against Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, all these early success that he had not being in tip-top shape. And now that he seems to be taking it seriously after just a horrible season with the Mavericks last year after the Kyrie Irving addition, it's just great to see players taking it seriously. And I'm hoping that we get an MVP level season out of Luka, because he's in the Western Conference and we don't have to see him until the NBA Finals, if anything.
Yeah, and also it'd be nice to see Kyrie Irving not playing so the Mavericks could do well, because if the Mavericks season goes well, then Kyrie Irving has not played much. No shade, Kyrie. I just,
I mean, significant shade, but no shade.
Yeah, you know how he is, man.
Earlier being like, hey, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do enjoy a good conspiracy.
Yeah,
no shade, but here's a ton of shade.
Yeah. It's true, right? Like, no, jokes aside, I think any player upping their level of play, upping their skill set is only good for the NBA. It's good for all the fans. Having somebody at Luka's level take another leap, and even if this is just fitness wise, maybe he can be at the peak of his game deeper into the season. Maybe they don't need to minute manage him. Every superstar gets minute managed, unless your name's Jason Tatum, who refuses to ever sit on a bench. No, I think this is good, man, and I really hope that's not photoshopped, because then we can start finding out what the workout plan is and we can start doing it ourselves.
Yeah, definitely need a little bit more of that in my life, bro. I was playing in a men's league on Thursday night. This is Sunday we're recording it. Within the first, 2 minutes of warm-ups, I was like, my body's not right today. Like, I can already feel it. I'm probably going to get injured if I play in this game. I was doing jumping jacks on the side, doing some core exercises on the side to try and like engage the hamstrings and the glutes and all that. Literally, first possession of the game, catch a cramp in my hamstring. And I'm like, yep, I was right. 34 years old. It doesn't feel great. So maybe we need to be on that Luka workout regime.
Just so I can say this, do you know how jealous I am that you even have a men's league?
I got 2. Mondays and Thursdays.
I don't even have somewhere to go and play indoors. Like, you have a men's league. Like, this is not fair.
Is there not one basketball league for just like recreation and where you stay?
Oh, you have to go to tryouts, and there's like, you can't just put a team together, and I'm not trying out for a team when everybody wouldn't even know what a back screen is. If I'm like calling rip while I'm trying to run in transition and somebody's like, I don't know what you mean, I'm going to throw the ball off your face. So like,
I just like the idea of you running in transition.
Why?
Just like I'm trying to picture you like getting out on the fast break right now. Like for me getting out on a fast break is a very slow jog. I don't think I've actually sprinted out in transition. So like I think getting to the play call is the hardest part. Just like getting up and down the court at mid-30s as we are. Like I don't think there's been one actual play call in the last 2 years that I've played in a men's league.
You
So
see, I'd be
you're not
calling
missing much.
plays consistently. Like, as soon as the ball touches somebody's hands, we're running a set because that's how we should be. Like, we're
Yeah,
running a set.
we'll run like horns, and just like people kind of naturally know how to move, but we're not calling anything out, like
Oh,
backdoor
cool.
cuts happen intuitively.
Yeah.
You might do, like a wedge screen inside to get somebody free, but that's all. Like literally not one play is called.
I'm calling 21 down there. I'm calling reset. Dude, man, I'd come with a clipboard. Like, everyone would refuse to play with me after one game. They'd be like, this dude just sucks all the fun out of it. Like, and I
Well,
understand.
hey, that's fair. But speaking of play calls, we got two Celtics point guards that we need to talk about here. We need to talk about Payton Pritchard. We need to talk about Malcolm Brogdon. So I'll let you just cook here. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's jump in with Payton Pritchard first. He's the one that didn't get as much playing time, so he should get more airtime. I think that's only fair, right?
Yeah, definitely. So tell us about Pritchard. What's the latest update that you're hearing?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing major. It was just wording that Joe Mazzulla used, right? Like, so Mazzulla was in a press conference. I can't remember when it was. I think it was something to do with Jaylen Brown's contract signing earlier in the week. Like, the press conference was earlier in the week. And he was like, the free guards we've got are going to be our core free guards, and there's going to be playing time for them. We feel like they trust us to put them in positions to grow offensively and defensively. But he used Pritchard's name in there, which obviously a lot of people jumped on, like, well, Pritchard's definitely part of this free guard rotation. There's going to be a significant amount of minutes for him because he can play the 1 and the 2. He's played the 2 under Brad and under Ime. Like, people just kind of, where have I gone? Oh, people people were just jumping on it like Pritchard's definitely in it. I think that's really good for me in terms of, having that scorer, having somebody that can push the pace, somebody that can operate in the pick and roll and just operate off ball as well. There's just a bit of diversity that he brings to the game. I also think we haven't seen the best of Pritchard yet in terms of having a pure consistent role. Even under Udoka, it was consistent and it was inconsistent. He never just had a full season to grow into a role and grow into a position with the team and get really comfortable with everybody around him and start to cook. I want to see what that looks like before he starts hitting free agency, restricted free agency, or we start talking contract negotiations.
For sure. And I'm just happy to hear that Peyton Pritchard like is being factored into the plans for this season, right?
Yeah.
Because when he first started with the Celtics, there was so much hype in the first like 10 to 15 games that he played before he ended up hurting his knee in his rookie season. I think it was an early game against the Kings, I want to say, where he had like a huge offensive rebound put back and he was on the court at the end of the game. I think Marcus Smart was injured at the time, so Pritchard was getting a little bit more run in his rookie year, and he just had a knack for making big plays. And for whatever reason, the Celtics haven't given him enough opportunity to continue to make those big plays. Obviously part of that is just roster construction. When you have a Marcus Smart and you trade for a Derek White and you sign a Malcolm Brogdon, it's kind of tough to just like make room for the smallest of that 4-guard rotation. You know what I mean? Even though he is the most elite shooter of that group, Malcolm Brogdon might have something to say about that. But Pritchard's ability to shoot from 30 feet and do it with confidence and to pull up off a pick and roll. Like you see these videos of him in the summertime, just like his bag that he has. He's a 2-level scorer with the, every once in a while he can get to a 3-level score, finishing around the hoop. But he has these moments where you watch him play and you're like, man, if only he could get 40 games in a row in a defined role where he doesn't get one coach's decision, did not play. I think that is what Peyton Pritchard needs. And that's all he was asking for this season when it seemed like he was unhappy. No shit, he was unhappy. He has a contract coming up. He isn't getting any minutes. He's definitely a rotation level player, and he's just relegated to the bench for an entire season. Like, that's not really fair to him, where he's only getting garbage time minutes when he's proven, even last year in the playoffs, he had a decent role in Udoka's rotation. He wasn't always getting huge minutes, but he took big shots in the finals. And that was something that Payton Pritchard, we were expecting him to build on that, but instead they were like, you know what, we can't trust him. We need to go get Malcolm Brogdon. That was the decision that they made. So with Pritchard, with Marcus Smart gone, I'm super excited to see him get a chance to play real minutes with the Celtics this year. But the other guy that we just touched on, Malcolm Brogdon, what's happening out there?
They're working on the healing process. What healing process? They nearly traded you. You didn't get traded. Okay, cool. They traded Marcus Smart. No one's talking about healing process with Marcus Smart. Like, Marcus Smart admitted he cried. Everyone was like, well, you should have cried. So I'm just like, the healing process, I get it. Making sure that Malcolm feels valued, and he should, because he is a valued member of the rotation. Making sure that he understands that his role is secure with the team for another year. Well, I feel like Mazzulla kind of drove that home by saying Pritchard, White, and Brogdon are the core guard rotation this year. But at the same time, like, putting so much effort into making him feel wanted when you almost traded him feels disingenuous to me anyway. Like, I understand that you had to trade one of the guards, and if push came to shove, I think everybody who wasn't an irrational Marcus Smart like detractor, because there's always one player you just can't stand, and for some people it was Smart. But for anybody that wasn't an irrational Marcus Smart detractor, if you had to make the choice between moving on from Brogdon or moving on from Smart, knowing what impact they have on the Celtics specifically, not the skill set that they have, but the impact that they have, most Celtics fans would have chose Brogdon to go before Smart.
Yeah, of course.
So, and I think that, I think Brogdon's old enough, man enough, wise enough to understand that situation himself. So I don't know where this healing process is. I don't know what it needs to be. Okay, we need to trade you. We didn't. You're going to be here. We're happy you're here, but we had a tough choice to make. We chose you over losing Marcus. I think everybody can accept that. Then you move on. I don't understand why we're talking a healing process.
Let's take a quick break, our final break of the pod, and we come back. Let's just finish up our thoughts on Brogdon, and then we'll kick it over to our weekly vibe check. Yeah, with Brogdon, so as you were talking just now, I was thinking, if we were in the position, if you and I are the people having the conversation with Malcolm Brogdon that are in charge of the quote unquote healing process with him, what do you think that conversation sounds like? Like, imagine I'm Malcolm Brogdon. You're looking at me, Malcolm Obama, staring at you in the face right now. What are you saying to me?
Hi, Obama. We nearly traded you. It didn't work. Marcus is gone. We still want you as the sixth man because of your injury history. We love you. We trust you. But at the end of the day, we were more willing to trade you than Marcus due to what Marcus meant to the city and to the franchise overall and to what he brought to us on the defensive end. It hasn't worked out that way. Let's rock for the season, baby. Let's get that championship. That's me done. Because it's true. There's not a lie in there. And I don't think you need to sugarcoat things with people, especially like when it happens so publicly from start to finish. Sugarcoating it is a waste of time. Right. So that would be how I approached it.
For sure. And I the only thing I would probably add is just like giving him that space pick. Okay. Like, because I think that's perfect what you just said. Like, now here's some space. Anything that you want to say to us, how do we move forward from this? Kind of give us your mindset right now. Tell us where you're at, and then we'll figure out ways to, if we need to improve it, we can. Because I think, with Brogdon, he is such a professional, you know what I mean? So I don't think he's going to come in and be, a sour apple in the bunch right now. So I think if you just give him that space, let him speak his mind. If he's like, you know what, I need a little bit of time. Like, it might sound crazy. Like, you might want me to be more professional than I can be right now, but give me a month. Let me just process it. Stay in contact. I can reach out to you. You can reach out to me, but let's just make sure we have an ongoing dialogue. Once I come back to the table and am in a better headspace to have that conversation, right? Because if you just straight up like sit him down, like, hey, Malcolm, like, here's a deal. You never know if he's in a very reactionary state after, being traded, and he's a human being. So he might not feel happy about that after he chose to come to Boston. I think just giving him that space to, either voice his opinion or tell you that he needs more time to think it through. Just approach it on a very human level. But I also like the approach of just being very blunt about it and just be like, hey man, like, we love you, but when it came down to it, Marcus Smart was the heartbeat of this team and of this city. So, and then what if he comes back with, oh, why didn't you try and trade Derek White instead of me?
Derek White's better than you.
Yeah.
I don't know how, like, if you ask
He's younger.
You ask a question that's going to lead to a tough answer, you best realize that you might not like the answer. Derek White is better than you. Period. You might be a better shooter, but Derek White is an Iron Man. He's coming off an 82 game played regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm Brogdon at one point needed like 2.5 seasons to get to 82 games. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, yeah, you can ask the question.
Yes, being super realistic with them, right?
Yeah, you can ask the question, but the answer is going to be one that you wouldn't like.
For sure. Okay, so I got to get running here to this wedding venue tour, Adam. As you know, we talked about that right before we hopped on, but we do have a little bit of time for our weekly vibe check. So I'm gonna let you go first. What are you vibing with this week?
It's kind of a promo though, right? Like, I am genuinely vibing with the amount of effort and research I'm doing with YouTube right now, just trying to build what we've got going here. Obviously, I'm quite comfortable with how we're doing audio wise, but I think that YouTube is like a huge opportunity that we've slept on for a long time. So, getting those quick hits up and running, incorporating the quick hits with me, incorporating more of these long form shows, getting to use the community features more. But I'm just vibing with all of this at the moment, man. Just trying to figure out this big old bad beast of YouTube and figure out a way to not only make better content, but also engage with more people that enjoy the stuff that we're doing. So I'm really vibing with that.
Yeah, I love that. And, for everyone that's listening on the pod right now, if you have a YouTube account, just go ahead, subscribe to us on YouTube. I think we're at like 1,015. Well, what are we at? Like a little over 1,000 subscribers
so
right now?
Now we're at like 1,100 and something.
Okay, yeah.
1,100 and change. I'm pulling up the numbers right now as we speak. Bear with me.
1,150 around there.
Around there, like unless all of a sudden we've had an influx, but who knows? 1,156 is where we're at right now.
Yeah, then that's a good number. But if as we try and build out the Green with Envy brand and the Adam Taylor Show brand, we're going to be putting a lot more exclusive content on YouTube. We'll still be doing our pod. Our pod will come out same schedule, but we're going to be putting a lot of content up on YouTube. So if you've been rocking with us, make sure you go to our page and subscribe. That will be in the show details. You can just click the link and it'll go straight to our YouTube page. What I'm vibing with, and I do this anytime there's a big UFC event, is the baddest motherfucker belt was last night.
Love that belt.
You like that belt?
Yeah.
It's a little bit controversial because it's kind of it's a fake belt, but it's a real belt at the same time.
All belts are fake belts.
Great point. But Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje last night, and it was in Salt Lake City a year ago. Leon Edwards knocked out Kamaru Usman with a head kick, and the next year, same venue, main event, Justin Gaethje throws a right hand, and behind that right hand, as Poirier ducks out of the way of the right hand, he follows up with a high right leg kick to the head, knocked him out cold, head bobbing off the canvas. There was a couple knockouts last night via head kick. There was also Derek Lewis, who's called the Black Beast. He hit somebody with a flying knee that sent them to the canvas. So it was just like an action-packed UFC event last night. I don't know if you had a chance to catch anything, but dude, watch some of those highlights. The Justin Gaethje, and then what's great is Conor McGregor, who I don't know if he'll ever fight again. I don't know if you're a Conor McGregor fan, but he immediately called out Justin Gaethje on Twitter afterwards and said that rather than fighting Michael Chandler, he wants to fight Justin Gaethje next. So I think that would be pretty cool if McGregor can kind of get back in the octagon.
Yeah, I mean, I like MMA a lot. I've been around a lot of MMA gyms and a lot of people that have been around that stuff. Fly knees hurt really, really, really bad. Like, there's no getting away from it. Like, head kicks, it's one of two ways, right? It's either going to really rock your dome and everything inside your body shakes, or it just stings. And the ones that rock your dome are the ones that when you wake up sometimes like, yo, did you get the number of that bus?
Is it all about placement? Because what I've seen, like, one guy got kicked like in the forehead last night, and he didn't get knocked out, and the other guy got kicked like behind the ear, which to me seems like the worst place to get hit.
Yeah, so you got the button, right? So everything runs along that jawline, and it's how much pressure per square inch gets hit onto the jaw. It's where your hands are as well. Like if they kick and it slides off the arm a little bit, hits you a bit higher up, it can rock you, but it won't knock you out. There's a lot of it's whether you see it coming, the ones that you don't see coming are the ones that knock you out. There's a lot that goes into it in terms of like whether or not you're going to end up getting like sparked. But in general, that shit hurts, and like I don't watch it nowhere near as much as I used to. But Gaethje's a good fight. I like Dustin Poirier. I like watching Leon Edwards fight. But what I'd like the most is knowing that I haven't got to get hit by any of these people because they are literally born killers, dude. I don't want to be around that shit.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. The baddest motherfucker belt last night. It was a great event. There was a big boxing event last night. I couldn't watch both of them at the same time. But there was a big event last night as well for boxing. So in the martial arts world, in the combat world, last night was big. But this was big for us today, Adam. Me and you getting to rock together. Without Will, but you know, whenever it's the two of us, I feel like the pod has its own unique vibe to it. The 3-man weave has its own vibe. You and Will together has its own vibe. Me and Will together has its own vibe. But when it's Greg and Adam, things get weird.
We went from aliens. We went from aliens to a wedding invite live on air to head kicks rocking your dome. Like we went everywhere, dude. It's been an emotional ride. I've been on a roller coaster.
It has been. But with that, we are gonna send you off with some music from my band down here in Austin, Texas. We are called Black Sheep Optimists. Peace, everybody.
Love you.